This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, the time being 4:46 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting of January 6, 2022 to order. Before we get started, if you are joining us virtually, please mute your microphone during the meeting unless you wish to speak. Otherwise, background noise will interfere with the meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Forrest Gump, inhale the flag.
Thank you.
I can smell the flag.
I'd like to bring the public minutes of December 16th and December 20th to the floor.
I cannot see, so. Hold on.
December 20th is a single page.
No.
In attendance,
Oh,
there's just a slight grammatical up at the top.
yeah, John just pointed it out.
I am Ann. One of me.
That was and
One of me.
you're in a different form, life form. No audio. Audio retained.
So are we changing that to A or and?
I think we capitalize it and put.
That's a big owl, right? So.
I think we could figure it out, but on page 3 of 5, the second paragraph, 69,750 doesn't denote that it's a money amount.
Got it.
I'm sure we can figure it out.
Pesos.
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes as amended,
Which minutes? December 16th?
December 16th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by John Scanlon. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstained. All right. Motion passes. Next is the public minutes of December 20th, 2021.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second that. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstentions, 1. Motion passes. The non-public minutes will be reviewed at the next meeting. To make a motion to accept a $1,000 donation from Tanger Properties LP for the police department.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Thank you to the Tanger Properties for their generous donation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. Make a motion to accept the $350 donation from the Tilton Northfield Rotary Foundation for supper at the Pines Center for the Senior Center.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Thank you to the support of the Tilton Northfield Rotary. And that would be the townspeople supporting them for their supper, so thank you. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. Make a motion to accept a $100 donation from Charlotte Cooper for the Senior Center pancake breakfast.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Thank you to Ms. Cooper, Charlotte Cooper, for your generous donation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. Make a motion to accept a $100 donation from Joe and Sandra Plessner for the Senior Center.
Second.
Seconded by Scott Ruggles. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you to the Plessners for your generous donation in support of the Senior Center.
Thank you, Sandy and Joe.
Very much. Make a motion to accept the $50 donation from Marie and Lou Bonnet for the Senior Center.
Ruggles, second.
Motion by second. Any discussion? Thank you to Marie and Lou for your generous donation. Very much appreciated. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. What a great way to start a meeting. I don't care. Making all those donations and making more work for Tim by figuring out where that money goes. I love it. That's great. Well, what else is on there? Did I miss something? Sure, fight.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good. All right. I like that.
Just be quiet.
Right next, finance and IT. I just want to make sure I didn't miss a line. Tim Pearson, come right up. Budget, a revised budget review.
Yes,
You have 5 minutes.
believe me, that's all I want.
It's actually 4:55 right now.
Yeah. Tick, 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 tick.
How about, would you guys save me a little time and
Yes,
pass them down? Thank you.
Oh, looks familiar.
All right, so a couple of things. There have been a few minor changes here, and then also you'll note on the front page that the Budget Committee has voted on the budget, and their budget is now complete with some caveats that I can go through, but they're waiting to see if there are any changes to the police budget that the Board of Selectmen makes. And they've scheduled a public hearing for February 2nd for the budget. So on the second page, when Jeannie was, and Jeannie presented last night the administrative budget, when she was going through, she did make a change after your last meeting to the department request on administrative training, where you see that gray box that denotes a change there. And if the board would like the board's voted amount to mirror that, I can make that change. But otherwise, the change that I did make was because of health insurance. So that we had an anticipated move that didn't occur in health insurance. So because that didn't take place, we were able to reduce that from the prior amount. So the $67,113 is actually a reduction from the last budget that you voted on. But because it is, you were voting on the actual, once the enrollment period was over, I made that modification for you to reflect the actual budget. Outside of that, the only other things of note in the budget that you're seeing is that, again, on page 10, which is in the police budget, you'll notice a gray box, and that's by the equipment purchase, just noting that the cruiser was taken out, as was discussed at your last meeting and voted on. And then on the very last page, you'll see that Franklin Visiting Nurses has a blank because you'll be hearing from them later on tonight, and then you can make your decision. So that's really, that Franklin Visiting Nurses line is the only line that you're currently missing, and that there may be some opportunities to revisit some of the police budget later on tonight. The expenditures that you see in here are current as of today for 2021, and we'll continue to see expenditures coming in over the next month or so. Usually try to cut it off as quickly as I can, but some of these things are really billed in arrears, and probably not until the first week of February. Probably I would hope by the public hearing, I could have 21 closed. The affinity contract that you voted on, even though we were waiting on the public utilities, that will be considered an encumbered item for 21. So the costs associated with that. So right now, I'm still thinking we're going to end up in the maybe 250 range for fund balance being added for 2021. Possibly higher than that, but I'd rather be conservative and come back and tell you it's 350. But I think it's going to be in that 250 to 3 range, somewhere in there. Outside of that, the budget is as it is, and the only other things that the budget committee voted on last night were the few things that they had not yet completed. One of which was the animal control. They did zero out the green committee, which was just $1. I don't think there were necessarily any expenses associated with it. And then they voted on the Lakes Region planning and the island maintenance, and that was it. So they completed the budget as far as they're concerned. And we're still looking at the revenues of $2,431,724. So having said that, that's pretty much all I have for right now until later with the discussion of the PD, unless you have any questions for me. Great.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Where's
Appreciate
the,
it.
Tim, I'm sorry, I don't see, where's the revenue?
The revenue isn't listed on there. It was provided to them at the December 16th meeting, and I believe they voted on the $2,431,724. Where was it? Yeah, there was a consensus or voted one or the other.
All right. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yep.
Joe killed it the last time.
All right. Draft 2022 warrant articles.
Tim, do you have a copy?
I don't.
Here. So this is the first draft of the 2022 town warrant articles. There will be no zoning amendments. We can go through each article if you want, if that's a pleasure of the board. We can vote on them or we can wait. Yeah, if we could vote on as many of them as possible tonight, that'd be great. It should be, it's relatively easy warrant. There are just two items that are going to be different. One has to do with whether or not, how we want to treat because the board decided to put the police cruiser in as a warrant. And the other one has to do with the recycling. Whether we want to see if we want to eliminate curbside recycling. And both of those articles, I've given you two choices for how to handle the police cruiser. And the recycling, we still need some direction from DRA, so those are not quite ready to go.
I'm a little bit concerned with, I don't know if these words are appropriate, but using and then draining completely and then redoing our capital reserve for the town roads, bridges and sidewalks. We don't seem to get to our sidewalks like we want to get to them. And that's been a concern with our residents for a long time. And Kevin has done a great job trying to catch up. And I'm concerned with putting in 90,000. And I think we should put something in there, a buffer in there. I know that there's a lot of work that you want to do with economic development, particularly downtown. And if we don't do something with that other side of the Main Street sidewalk, nothing's going to happen with downtown. It's impossible to walk on. 90,000, I'm thinking that we should take a look at that, revisit, talk with Kevin.
I think,
on that one. But
Tim, have you had some conversations with Kevin about that?
He did indicate that that was the number that he wanted to use. But the concern I've got is we'll be looking at a $1.89 increase currently on the school for the tax rate. So anything that we increase in the capital reserves, or worse, if someone makes a motion, as did one of the citizens last year, to pay for it out of fund balance as opposed to taxation, that will take away the gunpowder that you have available to you at the end of the year. He didn't indicate that he needed more than that, and I usually ask him, is that enough? Do you need more? And he had his plan set out for the year, but that'd probably be a better question for him. But he did confirm that number.
I really want to ask the question, is he giving us, with his plan, just enough money in here to get his plan this year to be done? That doesn't give us any room if, like you said, happens at town meeting, and if an emergency comes about, we have to put his plan aside and do the emergency. We need to have some type of, which is what a capital reserve plan is all about, being proactive.
What's in that capital
I
reserve?
was just looking it up. Fortunately, the laptop I brought has a dead battery. So you have to bear with me.
You should probably talk to the IT guy about that.
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing that.
If you write a nasty memo today to your person, I'm sure you've reported it before.
So while Tim is looking at that, Article 2, why don't we just go through them? Article 2, we're going to wait until we have the final number. Article 3 is $3,000 to go into the Tilton Senior Center Expendable Trust Fund. Is the board good with that? Do you want to do
I'll make a motion that we recommend. Article
Second
3.
that. This is the bus and transportation and maintenance and everything.
What other things come out of that?
Parts and things like that, like wiper blades and
But
brakes.
it's exclusively for the bus?
It doesn't have to be exclusively, but that's what has been done. Yeah.
How much was spent last year?
I can tell you. Let's see.
That's
I believe it was $578.24.
So it's under 1,000 and we're looking to put 3 in there. Do we have anticipated needs?
Well, it's getting older and it's being used. We didn't use the bus. We just got the bus, remember?
I remember all about the bus.
Okay.
No, you just said it.
That's why I'm asking about the bus. Is it costing us a lot of money or that was kind of my question, but 578 doesn't sound like.
No, it doesn't. It's primarily gas and maintenance. We kind of were being proactive on it. We don't really have a lot of data on it, do we, Tim, as yet? We don't even have a year on
Haven't
it.
had it, but.
We haven't had it.
Right?
What we're going on is based on the previous owner, which is kind of state independent living, and what they did for maintenance and preventive maintenance and so on and so forth. And that's what we were gauging on for preventive maintenance. But we have a,
Do you
you know,
think if we cut that in half, we would still have enough money?
that
I'm
would
all
be-
for raising what we need.
I get
but
what you're saying.
Needing what we raise.
I'm all for that. I think that would be a Kevin question.
Okay.
I think that would be a Kevin question, more than me. I mean,
I'm all for supporting the bus. I just don't want to raise more money than we're going to actually.
you have to remember this is a Mercedes and
Oh, wow. $4,000.
So I can tell you, the balance that we have is $7,429.83.
And
As
that,
of the
That's
end of
what we
December.
have in there now.
In which one? In the expendable trust?
In the expendable trust for the senior center.
You say that,
So
did
putting
you say that number
3 grand
again,
in there
Tim? I'm sorry.
does sound excessive.
7,429.83.
And that is also, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not just for the bus.
No.
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was trying to ascertain, but
It's not
basically
just
it's
for the
only been
bus,
used
correct.
for the bus at this point. That's what you just.
What else have we been using it for?
So far.
Right,
if there was a major repair that had to be done to the physical
that's correct.
senior
We
center,
could
would
do
that come out of this fund?
Yes,
Such as insulating?
The insulation.
insulation,
is an example.
correct.
So do we know how much that insulating is gonna cost?
I would
No
venture,
idea.
we don't know,
Jeannie?
I'd say it's probably about $2,200.
22, I would say ballpark 2,500.
So what,
And that's probably safe.
yeah, this is just, so this is spitballing here with the balance at 7,429. What if we look to bring the balance to $10,000, which would do that would put us at 2,571 to go into the trust? Just spitballing.
And so that would give us,
2,500.
Yeah, we could do
Right.
that.
instead of 3,000.
I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it in terms of bus insulation, stuff like that.
Insulation.
So you'll make a
Yeah.
motion to amend the 3,000 to 2,500?
You know, amend.
I don't think we even need to amend it, John, because it hasn't been voted on.
That hasn't been voted
Technically,
on.
we're
Well, there's a
still doing
motion on the
discussion.
floor to accept
We're
the
still doing
3,000
discussion
as
on the
written.
motion.
So if you want to accept a different amount, you'd have to amend it to that different amount.
So John
That's
Stanley
true.
made the motion.
I'll second that, John.
So do you want,
So
so
they
you just
second it?
amended it and Joe seconded.
You're
I'll
right.
second it. So it's a motion on the amendment
Right,
to amend the amount. So all those in favor of the motion to amend the amount
To 2,500.
to 2,500, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Now
we vote on the,
we vote.
I have the answer for the road, streets, bridges.
Okay, let them.
Let's finish this one first and then,
we got to vote on the motion now.
so make a motion to approve
We already did.
Vote on the
yeah, vote on the motion to approve the amended amount of $2,500 for Article 3. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion passes. Motion, now that we have to recommend it,
Yes.
That's
That
it.
is,
That
that's
is
we
it.
just.
That's what we, that's what we voted
Okay.
for.
I didn't know if we had to do separately to recommend.
Sure. Clock.
that's-
Okay, Article 5. Tim has answers on Article 5.
I have an Article 4.
We'll go back to
We'll
it.
go
So
back.
the Article 5, so there's $234,539 currently. So adding 90,000 to that would give 324,539 as a balance.
How much did we expend from that this year?
Nothing.
What projects do we have coming up?
There's a bunch of roads.
So the Academy Street project, is that coming out of this?
Yeah.
And then the south side sidewalk project, is that coming
Right.
out of
I
this?
believe so.
And then Kevin had given a list of there were.
And then there's a couple of roads coming out.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
It seems like we're gonna drain it,
Then we drain it.
because
That's what it's there for.
So with the 90,000, unless you're saying you want to put more than 90,000.
we would just say $500 in Article 3, we can put that toward it. Just kidding.
No, you won't.
No,
It's been my experience in the past that ambitious plans often get laid to the side. For years, we put away money for sidewalks, never spent a dime. It was a tragedy, but there was lots of good reasons at the time, but even so.
But now we have
well,
a
cost of
very
goods.
productive Public Works Director that is very enthusiastic in getting the projects completed.
And the crew is good.
We have excellent crew that's doing the work. And so if we have to put it aside because we have an emergency and we don't have that money and be proactive, that's where we're at fault. That's where we, the selectmen, are at fault. If we're not putting a little bit extra in there for emergencies and leave the money that in there that he's planning to do for proactive maintenance in roads and sidewalks, leave that so that he can do the work that he wants to do, and then put that aside, and then add 10,000 to that and say, in case of emergency, that's what that's for. That's what I would do.
There were a couple that were legitimately put aside as well. We had the fence by the riverfront that had to get fixed before we could do that sidewalk and take care of what we're gonna do, trees and that. We also had on Morrison Ave, put that aside for a year because the Honda was going in. They had to dig it up for utilities. And we've got behind the water department that got put aside because we run out of time and negotiating. It was a tough year.
It was a really tough
So-
year. But the year before that too, we did it too. But we can go ahead and vote on it. It's fine. I just wanted to voice my opinion that I really want to have some type of buffer in there for Kevin in case we do have an emergency, that he still feels okay with doing the projects that he's got planned for this year.
But if we have
Scott
an
had
emergency,
Scott had his
Okay with
hand
it?
up. Scott had his
if
hand up.
we have an emergency, won't Kevin and the crews be working on the emergency? So won't be doing a road
This
or
is-
sidewalk.
The roads are contracted out.
We also have increased costs this year with fuel.
Is there associated ditching and culvert work that has to be done by us?
Listen,
Scott, you have a comment?
Yeah, Pat, I completely agree with your sentiment. My only worry becomes when the closer you get to 6 digits, when it goes to the voting body, I think the more resistant they'll be in terms of passing the warrant article. That's just my only worry is I'd love to be able to get this number. I worry about the fact that people could balk the closer we get to $100,000. I completely agree with your sentiment is making sure that he's got it there for the work. So, but I'd like to be able to make sure that it's a passable number with our constituents.
yeah, I agree with
So,
that.
My question is, does he have written estimates for the projects he has, or are we at the bay of still, if the price of asphalt goes up 10%?
I think he was planning on
Yeah, I think so.
negotiating all the projects with the same vendor that he's had such a good working relationship with, and bringing that into the board. But negotiating, a price that they would commit to.
He says yes. I just texted him.
Okay.
But
So
doesn't,
he does have enough.
but, okay, you just said that he's working with the company, but doesn't the town have a purchasing policy which requires at least 3 bids?
We do. However, what I had recommended to him was that he approach the board and explain why he wants to single source this, so that he gets more economies of scale on the project and is dealing with, one company on all the projects and can better manage it. So.
And consistency. for
And we've done that in
consistency's
the
sake.
past.
Yeah.
It is with precedent.
Right. We have done that in the past on sole source and a couple of different items in town, yeah.
Found that the price, when you're buying that much asphalt, they'll give you a set price ahead of time. There's a formula for how much you're gonna use.
But this goes back to everything I've always said, that where's the bid process? Where are we bidding on these? Where are we receiving the bids? I mean, I read, I go out there and I look and I never see RFPs for the town of Tilton. And I'm just curious.
Well, I know they send them out, and I know that in the past, we've gone through the process, even though we knew pretty much who we were gonna use. And,
No,
it just makes sense, because when we got the RFPs back, the one we were gonna use is pretty much the one we're gonna take. And we don't always go with the lowball bidder either.
no, I get that, but at least, there may be a new company out there that we don't know about. Or
And it could be, and if at the time, we can certainly vote to send it out. We don't have to take the word of the Public Works director.
And I'm
When he brings in his information, it's up to him to research companies and come in and say, these are the companies that I've researched, this is what the deal I'm going to get. And then it's up to the Board of Selectmen to make this decision, Eric. It's not just, oh, here, I'm gonna go with this one.
Just because he wants to,
Right.
doesn't mean he gets it.
No, I get that, but
Yeah.
I just, when you're looking out in the public eye and all of a sudden,
Agreed.
people aren't seeing bids or anything like that, they're just want to make sure that we are, letting people know how their money's being spent.
That's
So
not-
I'm going to make a motion that we recommend the $90,000 to the town roads, bridges, and sidewalks capital reserve fund.
Second,
Motion second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of Article 5 at $90,000, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes.
We'll go back to Article 4.
Yeah.
And Kevin confirmed that was the appropriate amount. He was good with that.
Okay. Make a motion that we accept Article 4, recommend Article 4 as written.
okay, I'll second it for discussion, and I have discussion. How much money is in the highway equipment capital reserve?
Well, so there's $116,007 or $9 in there currently. But that's because if you recall, the trackless of $157,000 was supposed to have been on, at the dealership, if you will. And it turned out that they didn't have, they just had them on order. So if you recall, I had the board request the money from the trustees, and I had the trustees hold off doing that until such time we take delivery of it and pay for it. So this will happen sometime, according to Director Duval, sometime in the March timeframe, if we're lucky. So,
Lie it again.
so
How do we believe anybody who comes here?
It's everywhere. It's not just,
Yep, it's sitting there waiting for us. All we gotta do is cut a check. Oops,
So that's why, so the plan though, just to answer the question that wasn't asked yet, which is, once we pay for that, it was 111,000 coming out of this account. So we're gonna leave $5,000 for some, unforeseen event. So that there was some other money available to him for highway equipment. So right now,
So
we're
basically, there's only $5,000 in there.
there's 5,000 once we pay for that, right?
Okay, all
And the
right,
balance of
okay.
that machine was being encumbered, so.
Okay,
So we haven't
I
spent,
get
the money is encumbered, but we don't have the machine.
Don't have the machine.
So with 35,000, you got 40 in. And I don't know, does he have any plans for any other purchases?
He had discussed another attachment for the trackless, but I'll leave that to him to.
maybe you can swap the multi-one for it. It's a bad joke, I'm sorry.
He does use it.
Oh, I know. I know.
And Kevin is aware of what the balance will be.
He was aware.
Okay.
But I thought he said that there was, for the foreseeable future, that everything was in good shape.
That's correct.
I make a motion to recommend Article 4.
We did.
Never mind.
Yeah, we just called it.
Call the
All
question.
right. All those in favor of Article 4 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion passes. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $9,000 to the revaluation capital reserve.
Make a motion, we recommend as written, Article 6.
Ruggles second.
Any discussion?
Yes. Tim, how much money is in that account?
Let's see. Jeannie and I did look at the, we looked at the contract and how much we have to raise by the end. We're still on track. I'm trying to pull this up. Here we go. There is. Make sure we got the right one. 47,795 in that fund, and we need to have 72,000 by the end. So the last year in 24, we'll have slightly more than 9,000 raised in that.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Article 6 as written?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Abstentions? Motion passes. Article 7,
That amount was requested by Chuck Mitchell in an email.
Make a motion to recommend Article 7.
Ruggles second.
any discussion?
Oh, yeah. How much money is in that account, Tim?
$4,547.
How much has been used in the last year?
They did, I want to say it was about 5,500 this last year.
And they have, is this an ongoing thing?
As far as I
Yes,
understand.
yeah, they did quite a bit of pulling in through Silver Lake, and we're keeping real good track of how many gallons come out of milfoil come out of the actual our section. So they are working through that area and working on Silver Lake, and they've been real successful. I think they had 550 gallons of milfoil, so
That's
that's a
thing.
lot of 5-gallon buckets, hand weeded and roots and everything pulled up from there.
And they have to dispose of it, correct? What do they do with that junk? Do you have any idea?
It has to be disposed properly. I think, it only survives in
Yeah,
water.
yeah.
So
Maybe they
It's
turn it into
landfill or-
fertilizer or
or
something.
something in an area that doesn't, or
What about Lake Winnisquam?
and they've worked on areas on Lake Winnisquam too, so around Jay's Marina, that's always been a problem, some of the boat launch areas. And also, I think, was that the invasive species, right? So, and that's also eligible to be used on other invasive species. As you know, we have a lot of different, what
Yeah,
some people refer to as like bamboo,
I live right
which
there
is
by
a Japanese
the dam,
knotweed.
so, yeah.
Is really, fortunately in our town, it's been pretty well under control. But I think if you've driven out through Hill and along the sides of the roads and seen that. So, yeah, it gets spent on a regular basis, which is good and well accounted for. Nobody gets paid the money until it's actually done.
That answers my question.
Does Belmont do any lake maintenance of Silver Lake?
Yeah, they've been doing their half, or their shoreline. And, we've, there are maps and everything available, exactly where they went and how many square feet and what the yield was. We asked for that before we issued any checks, and I'm speaking for the Conservation Commission. They asked for, to be reimbursed, and we said not till we get the exact maps from the divers where it came out.
Do you have, honestly, do you have a link to that? You guys, is there a site that you can go to?
It might be on the Conservation Commission site possibly, or you can,
I'd love to see that.
yeah.
Did you just say that we're gonna pay the town of Belmont to remove
No.
Bill?
No. Just, he asked if Belmont was doing the similar kind of
So
work.
they contribute to the, one of the organizations, like there's a Silver Lake, and they do a lot of this
And
stuff.
they pay directly to the divers who do it and all that.
Yeah.
They're all certified. You sort
All of a sudden,
amateurs,
it's like, wait a minute, you said Belmont, is that the town?
No, I was asking it because if Belmont's not doing it, it's gonna be another.
Everybody along the lake, at least on Silver Lake, is in on this. That I
Yeah.
know.
It's been
That I
a
know.
big, for the first time in a while, that Silver Lake's had a good crew of people that are
Oh, good.
interested. in
They
it.
are driving the bus over there, or the boat. Sorry.
Both. All right. Any other discussion? There was a motion in a second on that, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. All those in favor of the motion as written, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. The Article 8. Raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to the Tilton Island Preservation and Improvements Capital Reserve Fund.
I make a motion that we recommend Article 8.
Second?
Second, discussion.
Tim, how much is in that?
Yeah,
In which?
the island,
Preservation, the
Yeah,
Island Preservation.
yes.
Improvements.
Thank you. I was
Numbers.
It is
Last night.
$62,947.
okay, now,
Joe,
that's the same account that we put money in for the design of the nose cone of
Yes.
the island, right, the wall.
Yep.
Okay, and that can be used for any project on the island.
Right, it was retitled
Yeah,
and
last year.
purpose changed last year.
So did we take like tree removal out of there? Is that one of those, we removed a tree?
Well, that
No.
falls under maintenance of the Public Works Department now that the island is completely owned by the
Yeah,
town.
yeah. Okay,
And also, just as a reminder, as agents, you're the agents for that capital reserve. Someone would have to request that of you, and you'd have to sign an instruction to the trustees to remit those funds. So there's an extra layer of control.
it's been a few years since we've actually put money in there, is it not?
It has, back in, I think, 2015, I think I had recommended not adding any more money because we had no plans, and also the warrant, as it was written originally, was very restrictive to a specific purpose that was corrected last year. So,
Okay, and are there any projects? I'm sorry, I keep running.
Eugenia.
Yes, so You know that the Route 3 road, DOT is going to be working on that. And I've been talking with DOT about that, and I know Conservation Commission and others have as well, that there could be potential impacts to the island and any change to erosion. You recall a couple of years ago, I did have a hydrologist recommended by the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services to look at the island and how we can stop or repair the erosion. So with the assessment has just come in on the Tilton Island Bridge. So there are many projects in the making, I think. We want to look at the revitalization of the island. We had, you recall, I reported that I had a walk with Vince Paratori, Pat Clark, and Jada, I can't remember her last name, from gosh, I can't think of the name of the organization.
So historical?
No.
No.
And they're very interested in helping the town move forward with a revitalization plan. So we haven't, you'll see it in the economic development plan. We'll talk about that later. But we are looking at bringing in an arborist or landscape architect as looking at possible plans for the revitalization of the island. And of course, then you have the bridge itself.
Question. What is our potential cost for the island bridge?
I have no idea.
Even with help, 65 grand doesn't go very far toward protecting my point being.
Right.
65 grand is not gonna go very far toward many projects.
No.
I would be in favor of putting in 10,000.
And just a reminder as
It ain't
well,
great, but
and that assessment that came in should give us those numbers about what that's going to cost. But now that we've gone through 7 to Save and we've gotten LCHIP funding for it, that makes us eligible to go back and get grant funding to do repairs. So that's what I would work on as well, is that trying to get grant funding for that. But yeah.
how much was the engineering on that bridge? Did we have it engineered to see what the structural defects were?
So yes, and
That was 20 grand, wasn't it?
that was, I want to say it was 19 or
Yeah.
17?
that was the cost to the town, and then we got matching money from the state. Because I run grants.
So $34,000, 35 grand to do the check of the bridge. How much do you think it's gonna cost a bit?
I know.
A lot of money.
So we got the assessment, or we're still getting?
We
it?
just got it. So my understanding from just verbally talking to the gentleman who did the assessment is that it's not, at least the last time I talked to him, when they did the initial assessment, it's not as in bad condition as it may look.
Mhm.
So we'll see.
And so that's going to tell us a projected cost of what it would, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Back when money was being put into the fund, it was 15,000 a year at that time.
So do you think that we should go with Joe's suggestion and put 10 in instead of 5, or do you think we should keep it at 5? Because this is what you folks are recommending,
I was just trying to be
conservative. Do you think that we should go with 10?
If this board is willing to do that.
Are we gonna need it?
Yeah, I think Joe's recommendation is good. And I think the other thing that I know we know, but it would also be reminding the folks who are ultimately going to have to pay for this, is that we are now the sole stewards of that island. So it's not a split responsibility anymore.
I agree with you.
So being able to help them understand that now as the sole stewards of that island, that
We're
it's
taking
obviously going to,
accountability,
it's going to cost a little bit more here and there to be able to do the things that we want to do and have it be a celebrated part of the town.
And I would be glad to stand up and champion this cause for the $10,000, but I think it's very important that if we stand up and take we're gonna fix the island, that we fix the island.
Oh, yeah.
I have no doubt that that's,
We've had 60 grand in
Jeannie's gonna
there.
do that.
We have 60 grand in there that hasn't been.
Well, but 60 grand was in there for a long time because Northfield wouldn't budge.
Yeah, no, I
And
get
that's
it.
why
That
we
was
thought
our half.
that
of
was
the
our
engineering.
half.
And we don't have to worry about that.
Right, and now we don't have to worry about
True,
that.
I
And
just
we,
want to move forward.
Just think though, if we
look
had,
who we got in our seat now over here, so we're moving.
You want to make that motion, Joe?
I
Faster
do,
than
I
a merry-go-round here.
I've moved to recommend Article 8 and amend
No, just
something.
put it in, recommend it as a number, and then we can, it just
Okay.
changes it, yeah.
I would recommend,
Well, there was
a motion and a second.
We already had a motion on it?
Correct,
these
yes.
things move ahead like nobody's business here. Lots of talk. Okay, I make a motion to amend
Yep.
the Article 8 to the sum of $10,000.
Second.
Motion and
Cameron.
second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of amending Article 8 to $10,000, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion passes. Now, back to Article 8. Any other discussion? Good. Make approve the amended amount of $10,000 as Article 8,
The original motion
the original motion.
is now
The
10,000.
original motion, $10,000. All those in favor of that signify it by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes.
Okay, so the next article, Article 9, is larger discussion for the board as far as how you want to handle this. And Tim and I have been talking about this, different options that you could look at. One would be just to have a simple warrant article asking for the purchase of a cruiser. Another option would be to create a police vehicle capital reserve fund that you're putting away little amounts every year in anticipation that you're gonna, it's almost like a capital improvement program that you're planning for that.
Mhm.
And that's the second article. A third option, which we're waiting for clarification from DRA, is you have a revolving fund right now. And Tim had asked the question, can you just take money and put it in the revolving fund? And so I asked DRA, and the first response was, yes, you can. But then I went back and looked at the suggested articles that DRA lays out. And when you set up this revolving fund, there are two different options to set up a revolving fund. One is just accepting fees. And the other option is a revolving fund accepting fees, and then you can put appropriations in. I'm guessing that this revolving fund was just for fees. So, right, so then the question I went back to DRA was, can we just amend this revolving fund to add the language that you can put in an appropriation? So I think there are three options for you. Just a straight warrant article asking for the money, creating a capital reserve fund, or revising, repurposing the revolving loan fund to see if we can put an appropriation in.
What would be the purpose of a revolving capital reserve fund when our cruises cost $56,000 to $60,000 with everything in it loaded? So, and we have to purchase a vehicle minimum every other year. You're putting $15,000 or $20,000. A capital reserve fund would be every 3 years. You wouldn't. Now you're behind in your fleet management, in your fleet maintenance, if you would. Wouldn't it be better just to go straight out and say, well, we have two coming, we know of that we're purchasing, so that should relieve the emergent demand on the fleet. And we put a straight warrant article in and say, okay, folks, we have to come and this would really relieve and get us on board going forward. And then put a warrant article in, either put a warrant article in each year for a cruiser, or a capital reserve fund that's a little bit more pricier than 15,000, because you have, your minimum of turning over a cruiser is every 2 years, right?
3, say 3.
Well, 3, and then
Three's
it's like
at the
45,000, you're still gonna, you're not gonna be paying for it.
Yeah, so my initial take on what we should do would be to augment, to use a capital reserve to augment the revolving fund. So my understanding from the original revolving fund, that when you establish it, you could appropriate money into it, but the type of revolving fund, if I remember correctly, that we had at the time, it was some time ago, though, in 2008, that once you appropriated money to it, I didn't think you could continue to appropriate money. It was then supposed to be the fees and expenses and so on and so forth. And there's only so many categories of things you can set up a revolving fund for. But so if we're not able to put money into the revolving fund, then it made sense to, okay, well, we can augment that by having a separate capital reserve fund that we put that marginal amount that we're not going to be able to cover, that's going to elongate the process paying for a car out of the special detail fund. So that was the original intent that I had. But in Meredith, they have a capital reserve fund that they put a certain amount of money into every year, and it's built up. And so I suppose, the circumstance could happen that if we went 4 years with a vehicle as opposed to 3, then, you'd have just in that capital reserve, you'd have enough for a full vehicle. But like right now, we've got $42,131 in the special detail fund. That's getting added to the $70,000 that we encumbered for the Tahoes. So it's really, it's really stylistic in my view. I think the important thing is to be able to get a car at least every 15 months, somewhere in that time frame, because then you've got to outfit the thing, and by the time you outfit it, you're looking at 18 months, so a year and a half between deliveries. I think that may be an appropriate pace for us. It's not as frequent as 1 a year, but in that case, maybe but that doesn't matter to me, just as long as we're getting enough money to be able to do that, to meet that kind of plan.
Yeah, and I think that it's just, I don't know, like Tim said, stylistic or philosophical. At least, if you're putting away a little bit every year, the hit is not as big on the taxpayer if you're only putting 30 and 30 and 30 instead of 90 every 3 years.
The assessor money that we put aside every time.
Right.
Same thing.
So it's whatever you all want to do, obviously. We're just giving you choices.
Could you do both? Could you?
We could buy a car and
Put it in capital reserve, and then 4 years from now, you've built up a pile, you've built up a base, I shouldn't say pile, you've built up a base. So now you could actually eliminate the buy every year in the warrant article. So then you, now going forward 4 years from now, you could have that 15,000 and draw from that going forward. You could be proactive. That would be more realistic in that. So the next couple of years, do both articles, buy one and then put $15,000 in a capital reserve, keep that in there. And then 4 years from now, you're drawing off of just that and not put in a,
We still got the
Cruiser.
detail fund. What do we
So
want in the detail
I
fund?
guess the way I'm looking at that 1.5-year purchase is that if it's a $60,000 vehicle, we're getting 30,000 year one, year two in capital reserve, and we're drawing it, or I'm sorry, we're drawing $40,000 out of the detail fund, 20,000 a year, or if you do 1.5 years, so 30,000. And if you look at the same kind of format, you'd be looking at 15, 22.5, and 30, so 52.5. So it'd be a little short, for 1.5 years. But if we put in 20,000, that should be adequate. But the whole thing relies on can the detail fund generate 20,000 a year? Some years it's generated 40. So it might mean that it's that marginal buffer to be able to try to make it every 1.5 years. Is it going to be perfect? Probably not. We're going to have big years and lean years, the detail fund. But we've never gone under a net $20,000 in the detail fund. The challenge we have right now is personnel. So even if we had the details, we'd probably be hard pressed to be able to capitalize on them. There could be a prolonged period where we might see a dip in revenue. But that was essentially the idea. You've got the detail fund generating a certain amount of money. You've got a capital reserve sticking some money aside so that hopefully you have enough money for 1.5 years.
But I think I get your concern, which I had thought about. If we're doing a capital reserve fund and we need a vehicle, then you're actually gonna put whatever it is we need for the vehicle plus an additional to start that capital reserve. So instead of let's say it's $60,000, we're gonna put 75 at 80. I get that.
John, did you have a question?
Yeah, and just in general, if we start discussing things, I appreciate everybody giving input, but let's go around the table a little bit because it seems like and very valid things that you bring up, but sometimes all of us need to participate in this. And I usually raise my hand and get recognized. One of the things,
John.
yeah, one of the things, no, that's fine. Just when the detail fund, does it ever get used on anything other than the vehicles and the direct equipment within them? Has it ever been used for that?
One time it was back in 2010, and that was changed back. So at the time the board had approved the cameras, the vehicle cameras, and then that was revisited. But so the answer to your question was it was, but it was undone, and so no, it never has.
And just a little history on that, and that's why I was asking questions. When I think it was 15 years ago or so, Tim and I were both on the budget committee, and somebody from the state came in and said, hey, you can do these revolving accounts and do that. And we said, this is a great way for us to buy our own police cruisers. And how it came into, that was the sole purpose, is to buy police cruisers utilizing the detail funds. I like the idea of contributing also into that fund, the detail fund, and keeping it solely for the cruisers and for outfitting them, and then augmenting it with it, as opposed to having a separate capital reserve account for vehicles and having the detail fund. Because what happens is it starts like diluting the purpose of what we originally started of the detail fund, putting money into it. It's, two funds for the exact same purpose. I like the idea of, as Jeannie mentioned, that third mention, he said, where we could change the type of fund So we can augment it and have one earmarked line item. This is put aside for cruisers, not this one and that.
Yeah, I think that would be preferable. It's just, my understanding was different. And we have a new advisor for DRA, so we really need to just
Yeah,
get it
she's
in
not
that.
quite educated yet, so
Yeah.
we can look into that.
Well, I just have a question, and maybe I'm confused, but I thought based on discussion within the last 60 days, that at some point, once, as we're stumbling out of the block trying to get the cruisers that we have on order, that at some point, we're gonna be on par to be purchasing a vehicle every year, not every 3 years.
So the vehicle was in the budget, if you recall,
Right.
in the operating budget. And part of it was in the operating budget, $45,000, and anticipating that we'd have $20,000 of detail fund revenue to augment it to be able to purchase a fully outfitted vehicle. And at your last meeting, that was the discussion, if you recall, to remove that out of the police budget and to make it a separate warrant article. So my thinking at the time was, okay, we're gonna have a warrant article that says we want to raise and appropriate $65,000 for a, police cruiser, fully outfitted police cruiser, 45,000 to come from taxation, 20,000, to come from the detail fund. So since then, that's where, we had some more discussions and looking at how Meredith does it and just thinking about different options. So that's where that came from. But to answer your question, I mean, there could be a warrant article every year that says to raise and appropriate $45,000 and the balance to come from the detail fund. I guess the only caveat would be, we might have to wait until we've got sufficient money in the detail fund, or if we had a banner year, maybe we don't have to raise and appropriate as much in taxation.
Okay. No, that's just where I was confused, because I thought it was discussed that at some point, it's gonna be every year, we're gonna be buying a new police car. But in this other discussion, it was every 3 years, we're gonna be buying a police vehicle.
Well, right. So, and that is probably, I should not have given my opinion. My opinion was different from maybe the chief's opinion, but just looking at our history and our purchase history, and so.
Well, we haven't purchased for 3 years, and we're getting close to being in a predicament, so.
Right. Yep.
So, okay.
So, I'm sorry, so Tim, if we're gonna cut to the chase here, would you recommend that we're looking at a yearly appropriation for a vehicle? Would that be the best case scenario?
Well, that was the chief's recommendation.
I asked about you.
So, I'm always, I hate to spend money. So,
Yeah, I know.
I guess if that's what's required, that's what's required. But I like to see the detail fund be used. It's just that, a year's time, you can have a bad year with the detail fund.
Sure. It's a moving target. It's variable.
And we got to have personnel to generate the revenue.
Yeah. Okay.
And right now, we're not in that position. So more than likely, if the board wanted to purchase one a year, we'd have to probably, load it up. Word the warrant article in such a way that it would raise and appropriate the $65,000 minus any net proceeds of the detail fund available to offset it.
Okay.
Something that's but the reality is that even once you get the vehicle, once you take delivery of the vehicle, there is a period of time by which, you're at the mercy of the installers. And there's a good lead time there too. That's about we've waited as those of you remember the Ford truck at Highway.
Year and a half,
That
Donovan,
yeah.
was it?
took a long time.
Was it?
Like a year.
Was that Donovan?
Police cruisers have been about 3 months in general.
That's good.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Pat? Joe? John? Scott? All right, I forget there wasn't a motion on the floor, it was just,
No, there was not.
So what are we gonna do?
Did we not have better information at the 20th? Meeting of the 20th?
We skipped
Yes,
over?
we will.
yeah,
let's come back.
We'll have better information from DRA as to, revolving funds. So.
Skip
We have to
over.
wait for the 20th? Today's the 6th.
I may have it before then.
2 weeks.
Are we not having a meeting next week? Is there something we don't know?
Thought we were meeting every 2 weeks, or did I miss something over the course of the last 2 weeks?
We're meeting every 2 weeks?
I thought we just skipped before
Let's go through
Christmas.
this.
let's go through this and we'll bring that up
Well,
later.
so we're good table these still.
I think so. I think that's the wise decision. Stable. I agree.
All right,
Article 10.
Article 10, thank you. To see if the town will vote to discontinue the curbside recycling program. Total annual estimated savings for collection and disposal equal,
Where'd you get that from, Tim?
Tim?
If that, again, this is a draft. This one we need to
Yeah.
work on.
Skip 10 too.
Whose idea is this?
The selectmen.
Article 10?
I brought this up.
This is a Joe idea?
It's a Joe discussion. Where do we go from here? What does it cost us to do recycling? What realistically are the
So
bills?
what is the savings?
You
Don't know. This is just a seat.
So remember, when we got the bids from the companies, they were supposed to give us a bid on the total program, including recycling, and a bid without recycling. And as it turned out, we have delayed it a year or extended, or actually just held true to the original contract, which is another year with Kennard dates. And in the meantime, at least that's what I understood this board to have the discussion about, is to put this on as a warrant article to see if there was any appetite to remove recycling, curbside recycling. And we would have to get that, or would want to have more information at town meeting so you could make that case one way or the other.
Possibly a public meeting
Mhm.
to invite people in, but the reality is the increases that Joe was talking about in tipping fees down at our wind waste mean that even if we were, the back of the envelope kind of figuring I did on this was, even if we went to just curbside collection of solid waste, not save any money over what we're spending now, but we just wouldn't be incurring additional cost for that. So in other words, the savings would be just absorbing the increased tipping fee, essentially. That's what the first, very high level look I took at it looked like.
Okay.
Gonna get real expensive. So I don't know. And if we could talk about this as a town. I'm in favor of recycling, and I'm gonna continue to do it. But it's gonna cost another $250,000, $300,000 a year coming up here right quick. So,
Well, and also town meeting had voted to do the pay as you throw and then voted again to take that out. So that's why we thought that it would be prudent for the board to have a warrant article that again apprised people what was taking place. Or
John?
what the options were.
So this would be also go along with the presentation on other options such as instead of curbside, because this is on eliminating curbside, but perhaps making a recycling center at the garage Or
You
people
can
could
make
bring
money.
things down
if you separate.
and doing that as opposed to having it picked up at the curb as single stream.
Pat?
What you're suggesting is a great idea, but reality is you have a couple of weeks to get not only numbers, but a warrant article disbanding recyclables and how much it's going to save the town and a presentation on options on it. And do you think that all of that's going to happen in a couple of weeks' time when it's going to take a couple of weeks' time to decide whether or not to put this warrant article in there?
This is advisory only. It's not binding.
I get that, John, but you're going to present this to the townspeople with facts and figures, and you're putting yourself out there and saying, this is what it's going to cost, and this is what you're going to save, and this is your options. You need time to do that. Not just in a couple of weeks in a public hearing for warrant articles, literally, what is it, 2-3 weeks before the budget public hearing? What is that, the first week in February?
Is it, I mean, we have another year as the status quo, correct?
This year,
Oh, this year, okay. So,
this would be informing the board what the town meeting would want to do so that you can go out to bid right after town meeting with specifics.
right, we can research and find out what,
And if we discontinued curbside recycling, it was instituted by a voted town meeting, and I would guess it can only be undone by a voted town meeting. So this gets us on a path. Whatever that is, it gets us on a path. And then the following town meeting, we would have whatever we needed to have for, how do we go forward? But if we don't start this year, it'll be too late for next year. You know what I mean? So that's all, but that was my idea.
I guess get a pulse of the town, it seems
Yeah.
like, and then
Yeah,
then that gives us direction on where to focus our energies.
because this is big money.
You know, having the cost of what it's gonna cost on the average taxpayer's bill to have curbside versus having to bring it to.
And ballpark figures, the fees down in Pennacook are pretty much written on paper. You know, so we can tell how much it'll cost us in that 7th or 8th year compared to what it costs us right now. You know, so, and you can extrapolate somewhat from that, considering what our increases have been for the recycling collection and the tipping fees for recycling. It's gonna be ballpark, but then again, we're only getting an idea of where people wanna go.
John? Oh, I saw your pen move. So, once we get more information, we can,
Okay, we'll table this one.
yep.
That's it.
I have one small thing, insignificant as it may be. Jeannie, can you just double check the last page, 3 of 5, where Tilton interim town clerk? I believe it should be Tilton town clerk. I shouldn't say I believe, I don't know. Tilton town clerk, because I believe that's what she was sworn in as.
She was sworn in as interim.
I don't know, I swore her in.
By the time we get to the warrant articles, she'll be the town clerk.
If you want.
I'm just thinking for our own protection,
Well, I can
should
tell you,
we just check?
I
check it?
certainly will check it. but
I can't
tell
remember
you-
this one, I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah. What's that?
I can't remember what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, no, I can check that, but I know because we've had this discussion before and it is in her paperwork as that. But
Okay. Then we're good.
Okay. Anything else on the warrant articles?
No.
Next up, Selectmen's reports. First on, up to bat, Pat Constantino.
I have two things, speaking of Tilton Town Clerk, tax collector. First sign up for elected public office is January 19th. For those that wish to sign up for an elected public office is January 19th. Closing, the last day you can sign up is January 28th at 5 p.m. Got that, Joe?
5 PM, you say?
Joe, 19th to 28th. And also the senior center is sponsoring a pancake breakfast on January 15th. This is to benefit the Boy Scout troop 842. It's $10 for adults, $8 for seniors, $5 for children. And we'd love to see you there. If you can't go and you'd like to sponsor a senior or just see us for tickets, any one of the senior executive committee members. That's next week, 9 to 12. And our illustrious chef, Joe Jessamine, is cooking,
I'm flipping pancakes.
flipping pancakes and eggs, I understand, correct?
Correct.
All right. And the Boy Scouts are serving along with the Honor Society at the Winnisquam.
Question for you.
Mhm.
Who would be on the senior, the
The
Tilton
senior executive committee
Yes, please.
is Chairman Pat Constantino, Vice Chairman Emily McLean, Iris Iano, and Jane Alden,
One more.
Sandy Plessman.
There you go.
Sorry for Sandy.
And are they available for purchase anywhere else?
Town hall.
Town hall? Okay.
No, we've not done that at Town Hall for a long time for other
Or the
people.
senior center, someone stop by the senior
At the
center?
senior center, they're available at Wednesday night music this week. If you call, we'll bring them out to you
At the door?
at the door. They're
Like if you show up
available
on
at the
that day,
door,
you
if
can-
show them up at that day, that time as well.
They'll take your money. if you
They'll
just
take your
walk.
money.
Well, I
Trust
just,
me. And if you need a ride, seniors only, and disabled, if you need a ride, you call 273-1912 and Pat will come out with the bus and pick you up.
John?
Did you ever hear me?
Yeah, will there be any bacon?
Bacon? I
Bacon
don't know
with it?
what's the menu.
Sausage, eggs,
Bacon?
pancakes, and perhaps beans.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
There'll be OJ, coffee, milk if you want it.
Coffee. Coffee it is.
Right.
Thanks.
Excellent.
So
No,
if you
I'm good.
can't make it and you'd like to sponsor a senior, please buy a ticket and we'll make sure a senior attends. Thank you, that's it.
That's it? Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, just one more thing. There was a resident that called, this is important because we do have a new selectman on the board. There was a resident that called and complained about neighbor putting trash in front of their home and snow blowing on their yard. But however, it is definitely a civil issue and Gail handled it very well. So I was called, Gail was called, and Gail had already handled it, so. Thank you, Gail.
All right, thank you. Selectman Scott Ruggles.
It's just so briefly, with the weather that we have incurred at the beginning of winter, a big thanks to DPW for doing a really good job, especially on the icy roads and side streets. Having to travel them in the mornings, they've done a superb job. And that's all I have. Oh, sure. And a great thanks to the group, the art group, afternoon art group up at the Tilton School. for decorating or painting one of the windows downtown. If you haven't seen it, it's a sliding scene with the Tilton School in the background and the hill, and it's just a wonderful piece. I was actually blown away by it. I got to see the preview of it and the drawings that they did, and then the final piece was far better. And hopefully that we can start seasonally starting to do that sort of all around town if we want to. So
Very nice.
yeah, I'm good.
All right. Thank you very much. I will second your comment about DPW because leaving early, sometimes our roads are better than the highway, the state roads, early in the morning, so it's good. Joe Jessman.
Well, I've been out of commission for the last couple of weeks. Got the COVID, glad to have survived it. Wear your mask, get vaccinated. You don't want that. And other than that, I will be Saturday from 9 to 12 at the senior center flipping pancakes. And so come on down. That's it for me.
Is it this Saturday or next Saturday?
15th.
15th.
Yep.
Okay, I thought you said this. I'm all hungry for pancakes.
Yeah, stop.
I don't like blueberries. I just want
I'll have bananas.
I'm gonna bring my real maple syrup and I'm gonna be good to go. All right. That's anything else, Joe?
No.
Okay. For me, I would like to get a consensus. I think it's worked rather well for the last couple of months of continuing to have our meetings on the first and third Thursday of the month. So I guess I will ask for input on that and a consensus.
I'm for every other week.
I am as well.
I think it works. It has been working. I think it's less stress on the finance, IT / town administrator, and probably the selectman's office as well, which makes them more productive doing the things they need to do. We can still be meeting as necessary. Something comes up, we have a meeting. But that would be my 2 cents.
John? Any 2 cents, 3 cents, 4 cents?
Just, I think, if we don't have anything that's really pending, then we could probably do it. I don't want, if something comes up, we have to meet, keep it open on Thursdays, because I think as we get closer to maybe budget or the public hearing time and stuff like that, we're gonna have to maybe switch as opposed to a set schedule for every other third. Might have to fit another one in.
Agreed.
Flexibility.
All right, Pat?
I'm going to be outvoted. It seems like this decision was already made long before we got to this meeting. However, I'm highly opposed to it only because I agree with what Joe had said. It does tax the staff at town hall. If there is a way that we could do it and get out of here at a reasonable time, but every other week, coming in and doing our work brings us to 9:30 or 10 o'clock. And when people on the board have to get up at 4 a.m., it's not a very healthy environment for the people that have to work the next day at 4 a.m. So that is my only downside to every other week. It really puts a strain on a 5 or 6 hour meeting that evening. And it's not, there are some people that have jobs that can get up and 8 or 9 o'clock the next morning and fluff it. I don't. I have to drive children. And at 4 a.m. in the morning, I can't, 9:30, 10 o'clock in the evening, that's not fair. That's my downside. If we can work it every other week and get out at a reasonable time, fine, but it doesn't, I've been here for almost 13 years, and you go every other week and it piles up. And now you're out to 8, 9, 9:30, 10. Weeks ago, we were here till almost, 10 o'clock at night. You go home, try to wind down, you're up until 11 o'clock.
I'm in the same boat, getting up at 4 AM with
I
you.
know you're in the same boat, but
I do
it's still,
agree.
you're saying, okay, well, that's all right. We'll go every other week. I'm gonna say something. Every other week doesn't work.
I think that this board has worked well the last couple of months with the every other week. I think we've worked very well together, keeping on task. And yeah, we had one meeting that got out late, but it doesn't mean to say that if we've been meeting every week, that same exact thing wouldn't have happened.
Look at tonight's agenda. We don't even, if everything goes as planned, everything meticulously goes as planned, we'll get out of here at 9:15, maybe.
Well, there was a typo in the agenda, so actually it would have been,
9:30, right?
no,
We're
there's,
lucky if we get out of here at 10 o'clock.
if you look at the agenda at 4:45, there was a call to order. And we went through those things. The next event was at 5:30. So in a sense, we gained a half hour. But I know I just said it. I just. All right,
Help us, right, help us.
But you go ahead and vote. I just feel like that it's already been decided, so.
Nothing's been decided. What are you implying? What exactly are you implying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. You've already said it earlier. You already said, well, we already going to every other week. It was already said earlier, January 20th. That discussion long left the
It
boat.
wasn't
time ago.
discussed. It wasn't discussed.
No, wasn't discussed by me. But I haven't heard from Mr. Ruggles.
No, I said I agreed with it.
You already
I was,
said
I was
that.
brief.
The four of you already agreed to it, so.
That's what I think anyway.
Mhm.
I do agree with John's sentiment, though, that we have to be able to leave it open just in case we have to meet. So, I think that becomes sort of a necessity that we have it blocked out just in case.
That was my intention to say that, and I left that out, and I apologize for
That's
that.
okay.
And put a cap on it at 8:30 and be done with it.
8:30. We'll try our best to get out at 8:30. Makes it easier. All right.
Toward that end,
Is that a consensus then?
probably yes.
Yes.
I'm a yes. John?
I'd like to keep it flexible.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, if we start getting towards the end of a meeting like tonight and we say, hey, we got a lot of stuff we got to catch up on, we're going to have to meet next week because there's just too much stuff going on.
And there could be something that happens tomorrow that dictates, or Monday that dictates that we have to meet next week. And I'm for that.
So I had something I was gonna bring up next week. So I gotta put it out 2 weeks now. All right. Okay. It is what it is.
All right.
Let's move on.
Residents, the residents of the town of Tilton, the last day to submit petition warrant articles is Tuesday, February 1st, 2022. Is that safe to say that it's at 5 PM? Yeah. At 5 PM. Does that go to the town clerk's office?
Yeah.
The town clerk
Tuesday
open
is not open. Are you requiring the town clerk to open until 5 PM?
No.
Tuesday, February 1st?
What's the
No,
time?
no.
Well, that's what he just.
I asked, what's the time?
Right, well.
Close of business on Tuesday.
Haven't got there yet. No, I would say 4:15. is
4:15.
when The building gets closed.
Okay, so last day to submit petition warrant articles is Tuesday, February 1st, 2022 at 4:15 PM. Also, the winter parking ban is still in effect until April 15th. I've actually seen a few cars ticketed. I don't know how much it is, but beware. And Selectman John Scanlon.
Well, a lot of things have already been covered. The alarm system and fire system's complete at the Tilton Senior Center, and people will be learning how to operate that. One of the things with our parking ban, it doesn't cover for snow plowing during snow emergencies during the day. So what happens is people don't park on the street at night from 10 AM to 6 AM. That's not when it snows all the time. It snows at 10 in the morning, 12 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon. So what happens is that the snow plows can't plow the road and go around the cars. Presently, our snow emergency thing states that we have to post signs for it if we declare a snow emergency, to have the cars not parked on the street. You can look it up, get a chance. So I think what we should be doing is paying attention to more of NOAA. When they broadcast, they have different categories. They have blizzard warnings, they have snow emergencies, and then they just have snow event. So I think it's important that we have one so that people don't just park on the street when Kevin's trying to, and his crew are trying to plow the roads and keep them open. Because once they go through and they plow and they leave that snow on the road, it freezes, it's there, they're done for the winter. Or he has to come back again, special trip to redo it. But, so that's something we should be looking at. And that's it.
I have a question for John.
Yep.
Let my hand up so John can see that I've raised my hand. Who's going to teach us the new system at the senior center? Do we have instructions or instruction manual, or who does that? Is that
Yeah,
Mango?
they
or
can
is that-
set something up, or, I mean, I can show people very easily too, at any time. Cindy showed her, and she's like, is that
Well,
easy?
Cindy's not an employee of the town of Tilton.
She's
so-
an alarm code, and she opens up in the morning, so she was the only person that was there. That was,
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
present.
asking who's going to instruct our employees how to do that.
so I guess they would have to call Mango up and arrange it, or I can show anybody, because I have the
So I
same
guess I'll ask
system at
you
home.
that question
I will send off an email tonight.
on how to do it.
Yeah, so it's active now then.
It's not on,
It's
Yes.
not on.
no.
It's
There's
not
no-
on.
No, because nobody would know what their codes are, I found out.
So we can find out how to harm it tomorrow, right?
That'd be nice, maybe make a little video,
Great idea.
you know? And
Oh.
you can make access to the video to all the people and you say, enter your code.
So I'll get with you.
And I'll get with them.
I like it. Sounds like a
All
plan.
programmed?
Mhm.
All programmed?
It's actually reporting, it's just not active.
All right.
Can we turn it on tomorrow? If we have our code? Okay,
And you want, make sure everybody knows that this is it,
okay.
but they can call their office and they'll arrange that, or I can also help out.
Anything else?
Oh, no.
Okay.
That was okay.
The selectmen have a separate code to use and a separate password to use.
Each individually or just?
No,
as a
One
group?
code for the selectmen, one password for the selectmen. So when you go out,
I've used it
What is
from
it?
time to time in the past.
lock me water.
Matt,
Separate password.
you could share the code? What is it?
Nope. Not sharing it with you.
All right.
Hey, wait a minute, wouldn't John get us the code?
Doesn't know it.
All right.
That's why I was
I'm
asking.
gonna move, Gina, I'm gonna move you up to now if you're ready. All right. The town administrator's report.
Thank you. So you received my weekly update. And the first action item is just a reminder that you should probably decide pretty soon who to dedicate the annual report to. We do have a memoriam. And the deadline for anyone who has to submit anything for the annual report is January 14th. And that's right around the corner. I see that I looked at the to be signed, so my second item has already been taken care of. Thank you. The third item was taken care of. We did the town warrant, so that's been taken care of. The next item on my action list is the economic development plan for Tilton. And you all should have a copy of that. I sent it to you electronically, and then there should be a hard copy. So did everyone get a chance to take a look at this, or would you like me to go through it? So essentially,
I read it.
okay, so essentially, we've had, what, 2 meetings now?
Yep.
We did a brainstorming, and then we had a second meeting and came up with this kind of draft plan. And what we had agreed to with the selectmen is that we would bring this plan to the board for you to take a look at and decide if you are good with this, if you have any concerns, maybe you'd like to look at it and come back. And I'm happy to go through any item on the list. Eric and Scott are also on that committee, so I'm sure they could jump in too, if you had any questions.
I don't know how to say it. And it has to do with page 3, community event, page 2, number 3, community events. And
Under midterm, which?
the planned retail and community events. See,
Right at the top of
Yeah,
page
right,
two.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, page 2, number 3.
On top.
On top there. And I've been thinking a lot about it, especially with some of the things where some of our community events are being challenged that we have. And I don't know if there's an opportunity for the economic development to partner with some of these existing things to.
Yeah, I think you can say it was public last night.
Yeah, to bring them into Tilton, solely into Tilton.
And I did reach out today and
Yeah.
offered assistance, so if there's anything I could do. But I think there is something in there, I just don't know where it's at, right off where it said piggyback
Get a bigger one?
other activities that are happening.
It was bothering me all day today, so.
What is it?
It was
It
public
was
last
public
night, so
last
you
night.
could talk about it.
Yeah, so so I don't know if you know or not, but the town, when we shoot off fireworks, when fireworks are shot off for certain events, they're shot off in Northfield.
Mhm.
Northfield is now requiring any organization that is going to do that a $750 deposit.
May I?
Sure.
It's not just the fireworks too. It's any event using a public site or a site owned by the town of Northfield. They will be requiring a deposit on that site in order to cover cleanup, et cetera. So specifically what I was talking about, and comes out of budget last evening, was Old Home Days. And the Old Home Days Committee has significant concerns because they have 2 sites that they would use. So it would then be $1,500 up front that they would have to put forward out of their existing budget, which is a major chunk at this point in time. So the Old Home Days Committee is quite concerned about that. And so there was just some discussion last night about going forward, where might it go? So that's in a nutshell.
Yeah. It would just bother me today, and I'm like, how can we tie it into Tilton and maybe economic development?
Well, certainly would follow the community events, and
Yeah.
as I said, I did reach out today and offer if there's
Okay.
anything I could do. So it's I think it's a pretty big list. It's pretty aggressive, ambitious. I would, if this board doesn't have any issues with what we've laid out, the next step would be for the committee to get back together and talk about, okay, what are we going to try to do in the first year? What things are we going to start laying the groundwork for? A couple documents that I think would be helpful for the board to read. If you're interested, I don't know how involved you want to get or not, but you recall back in 2019, we did a goal setting, which if you haven't looked at that, could tie into this. Population demographics report of October 2019. I had given that to the board a while back. I had the state do a report on where we're at, because this is updated from, I looked at the master plan, and so at some point the master plan should probably be updated, so it's more current. There is a really good document called The Role of Local Elected Officials in Economic Development. I have a copy of that if anyone is interested. It's a pretty easy read. And prior Main Street studies. And all these items are things that the committee will look at as we move forward, just to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel on something or missing something.
I'd like to read it.
Which all?
No, the first one that you mentioned, the easy read one.
Oh, the role of local.
The role of local
Yep.
officials, yeah.
And the only other thing I noticed after reading this again that missed is, which I would put at the very end as a long-term goal, is the I don't, feasibility study or some kind of study on riverfront development. Because that's an asset the town has, and we kind of have a back turn to right now.
I really liked this plan. It is a bit aggressive, but no doubt that you can accomplish it.
Yeah.
Well, I meant you as a committee.
Yeah.
I really did mean you as a committee.
John.
Nice. So on page 2, the number 5, post-plan New Hampshire charrette. A lot of people don't understand that whole term of a plan New Hampshire charrette. And that's why you've heard people saying to me, it's like, what is a charrette? Is there a more better name for that we could use that would encourage people that don't understand what a charrette is? You know, that it just gets more people interested.
I think certainly we could do a little bit more explanation about it, but that is what it's called. It's a Plan New Hampshire charrette, and it's basically the community getting involved and what do they want to see happen in their community. So absolutely, I think since we have the dates for September this year, we'll do the same thing we did last year at town meeting and promote it. We'll start getting out earlier. I had some residents in the community at the tail end or just before we were going to have the charrette reach out and say they would be happy to be involved and get people to come to the event and promote it. So I intend to take advantage of that as we go through the next time.
And, or perhaps even attaching some type of motto to that. You know, like a name, it's in Plan New Hampshire charrette, and then a motto.
Motto?
A motto to
Okay.
Like the help plan the future of Tilton or something like that.
That's a good idea.
And then it keeps the same word, but it adds up. Enthusiastic, live for your die.
Jeannie, I wonder if, going along with that idea, I wonder that going forward, if we might be able to produce a real short informational sort of video on what it is to be able to put onto social media. You know, just so that I think John's right. I think people see the word charrette and they're wondering exactly what it is, because not everyone will go and Google it. But just being able to put out, whether it's, using a couple of select board members or, yourself or one of the members of the PD, or all of us to be able to just explain what it is and why we're going forward with it. And honestly, being able to release it via social media onto our website a few times leading up to September might help the public. It might help pique public interest.
Great idea. I like John's idea and I like Scott's idea, so thank you.
Mine comes from John, so he was my inspiration.
So I don't like your idea, I like John's idea.
That's what it's about, everybody pitching in, and anybody who's watching and stuff like that. So you just come up with something. No such thing as a bad idea.
Oh,
Sure.
Don't say that loud.
Yeah, I think it's more understanding.
the whole,
I agree with you.
Coach.
Well, you taught me how to wax statues, so.
that's really odd. I'm trying to-
But I'm not coming out the way to the wax statue.
Oh, okay.
We're
Gotcha.
not paying attention. We're not paying attention to you.
Right.
All right,
Just in
so,
case you were wondering.
okay, no, I got it.
Wait, am I supposed to?
No.
I'm not supposed to keep this one either. I
pass-
thought we were
pass
not
that
getting
one on there.
individual ones.
The next,
I got-
You are getting individual ones, they're right here.
is
I can
everybody,
just take a picture of it.
is
Sorry.
everybody good with that?
Hmm.
Can I move on to the next?
Yep.
So it's not on the list, oversight by me. There is, John, I'm just going to hand that to you for everyone to look at. Highland Ridge Cluster Subdivision, Leanne has asked for a motion to reduce the letter of credit. You'll see in the documentation that Keish Nordstrom went out and reviewed the property, and they are asking for a bond reduction in the amount of $80,618.75, which would leave a balance of $7,500 to be held until a more comprehensive inspection of the erosion control measures can be conducted in the spring. And so I asked Leanne, I said, well, is $7,500 enough? She said that they had actually looked at it before the snow fell and Keish Nordstrom felt that it was in good shape. They are the ones who recommending the $7,500. When they went out at that December date, there was some snow covering it. So he said, just to be safe, reduce it by that amount, hold $7,500 back just in case. But they felt it was pretty much ready to be released.
I thought we did that once already.
Well, there are reductions that go, they don't.
Goes in
happen at
stages,
once.
right?
It's
Yeah.
in stages, depending on how
Okay.
far they are.
Does that mean that everything is picked up there from construction and everything, that it's done?
No, what you see, and I don't know if it made its way down to you, but basically everything is done. And they're saying that they would hold $7,500 back until a more comprehensive inspection of the erosion control measures can be conducted in the spring. So everything other, it's a safety net in case there's something that they can't see because the snow is covering it. And again, I went back to Leanne and I said, well, what does that mean? And she said, well, Keish Nordstrom has already looked at it and everything is where it's supposed to be, but they just want to have a safety valve there, a safety net, so that when the snow melts, it can look at it one more time. The last time they looked at it, they felt it was.
All the buildings that they're building are up.
Yeah, it actually sold up.
According to Keish Nordstrom, who we hired to represent us, yes, everything that needs to be done, the only thing outstanding is this erosion control that they want to hold back $7,500.
Has Leanne been up?
This one's for-
She did go out.
Did anybody walk
This one's,
behind there?
this is.
Yes.
And they didn't notice any erosion or trash or anything like that?
Go.
Construction debris?
That's what this letter said.
The items that are attached to the back of that are for Planet Honda and not for,
Here, so we can pass, this can get passed.
I haven't seen it, so I don't know what you're talking about.
the letter.
This-
Then the
That's the Planet Honda.
detail of stuff that goes back, that was attached to it is for Planet Honda, not for that development.
Well, how can we vote on something if we have the wrong information?
Don't want
Right there.
Table it to 3 weeks from now when we come back.
If that's what you'd like to do,
Where's the one for the Highlands?
it's,
This is just that front.
It was
We
just
don't
that
have
front
that
page.
just
We don't have-
that, it was just that front page, and that this inadvertently got attached to the back. Has nothing to do with
So
this.
they, we'll just put it off till we get the right information.
Well, you do have the right information. There was just some stuff in the back that was attached. that
There was
shouldn't-
additional non-pertinent
Yeah.
Yeah,
information.
non-per.
I'm trying to think, they finished all their construction, they planted all their seeds and all that last spring. And it's all grown and I think there was an inspection that was done last fall that said everything was complete except for
The erosion control.
erosion.
Because we had a
Well, no,
list
they're
that included,
checking the erosion
Checking the
control,
erosion.
but the erosion control is supposed to be in place. Is it gonna work? We'll know in the spring.
Oh, we definitely will.
I make a motion, we table it to the next time we meet. I'd like to actually go up myself personally.
I'll second that.
motion a second, any discussion? All those in favor of tabling the issue until our next meeting, say aye.
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 Opposed? None, motion passes.
And the rest of the items on my weekly update are FYI, so unless anyone has a question,
Third bullet down on FYI.
Yep.
Good, bad, or indifferent? Talk about it later.
we can, we've just gotten one so far, and I was just updating you.
Okay, so you, nothing to act on.
No, I was just letting you know that we have received at least one, or only one so far.
John?
So on the back, is the letter from here on the Salmon Run. We need to provide them with anything, because we do have restrictions on all those properties, nothing can be done on.
Well, I had, he was just asking the question if we had any plans for it, and what I responded back to him was that's in conservation, and so it's being.
It's completely,
Right,
the deeds
so-
have restrictions,
Yeah, so-
nothing can
Right, so
ever be done.
they're not planning to do anything, is that what you're thinking?
Well, what are they getting at in this discussion? Are we going to have a discussion with NHDES saying that we don't need to keep monitoring? Because there's no plans to ever disturb the soil or do anything. See, one of the issues up there is not so much that the arsenic is coming from the previous things that were done on it, but it's naturally occurring arsenic that's in the ground many places. And how long do we have to keep monitoring that?
It's gonna be as long as they tell you you have to.
I mean, there could be that much arsenic upstream from that.
I know.
I mean, and then would they still want us to monitor it if they determined that it was naturally occurring?
we won't know that until they do the final sampling, the groundwater sampling. And that's why I asked him, when he sent me this, I sent him an email back and said, are you observing any trends? And this is what he responded back.
So the final, what would the final mean, that final that we're done, or?
Well, the final for what the DES has agreed to pay for in terms of, because at this point, they're paying for the groundwater sampling that's being done. So there's one more, if you remember, there was spring and fall, I think, for the last 3 years. And they did the November one, they'll do one in the spring. And
After that, is that we would have to take over and start putting that bill?
well, if that's what DES decides, and I think we're getting ahead of ourselves because I don't know what they're going to decide. And I don't know that there's anything we can do right now until they do their final sample. And he said right here, he says, he doesn't know what the DES expectations would be for this. I don't expect the obligation to issue a groundwater management permit 5-year monitoring plan, as there doesn't seem to be any attenuation of the arsenic. So that bodes well for us. But you don't know what DES is going to say.
I didn't know if we have to, budget for, I don't remember what costs and something like that are. Yeah. Start paying for that, or?
This question came about 3 years ago when they started, 4 years ago when they started all of that, and they couldn't determine that. They said, and we brought it up. I think it might have been Chuck or Helen that brought it up and said, well, what if you determine that if it's natural, coming from a natural source, would you still have to monitor it? And that identical question was brought up to the DES person that was there when we were all around there, and they said that's to be determined. And so every year since then, Good Area has gone out there and done exactly what they're doing. We can ask that question, and they come back and say that's to be determined. So the DES is just saying we'll be finished when we're finished. And that's what they're doing.
Yeah,
Because what is going to happen, and I agree with you, John, because what's going to happen, when they're finished monitoring it, do they just say, it's yours now? Or do they determine that it's from a natural resource? Because over the years since they've been monitoring it, it's kind of just been like this. If you look at all of the plans from Kaderi, all the monitoring results, it's been very, very consistent. There hasn't been nothing. It's been very consistent.
So the
overall,
concern is that, okay, so they stopped monitoring and DES says we're not gonna pay for it anymore. However, we want you to take further action and mitigate where that's coming from, and that, could they dump that on us? And say, okay, well, now we want you to revisit the whole thing, and,
I suppose they could, but then it would be up to us whether or not we want to take on that responsibility, and they would have to prove to us that it's a liability to us. When, the last 5 years you've monitored it and it hasn't done anything. Why is it now all of a sudden a liability to us? And you're not,
because
and that's something to be determined down the road.
all the funding, is the funding still available for treating that under the brownfields? So
I know that was a huge question with Helen, I believe it was Helen and Chuck. And it was the DES person that was there that when we walked the grounds and they showed us the monitoring, they showed us how they were monitoring it.
So
When they first started it.
can we forward the response over to Conservation Commission? I know they're,
I did send it to them.
thanks. It's interesting. And like I said, arsenic was not determined as something that was a contaminant that was created at that site, but it was in there. The PCBs, and that was the big thing that was in there. the arsenic, which comes from a lot of iron-rich soils, will travel down through an aquifer, which is kind of natural through that area because of the landscaping up behind in
Right.
ledge. So, yeah, that's it. Let's let everybody get up to date on what's going on now.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Anything else, Gene?
Nope, you're at 7 o'clock to be here. I'll go take a walk downstairs.
All right, we'll get them up here.
See if they're there.
Franklin V&A.
Who's supposed to be in?
Franklin V&A. Sherry.
Maybe you guys can pass around pieces of paper to see who you want to.
I just did.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Is that the one I'm thinking?
As a group, I said.
Okay.
I said the one that we, as a group, think about what's been done in the last 12 years, what has been accomplished, the different committees that have been established, the different organizations that have come about from that, the networking, the outreach that they've done, and it's been the same 5 people that have done it for the last 12 years, doing it. And I think that, of course, one doesn't count, you know that it's not about that. It's about the group and the work that they've done and accomplished. And I think that it's really, when you go in there on a Thursday and you see that work that's been accomplished, it's an amazing feat to have that continue.
On the memorial, maybe we might have 2 people on there.
Okay.
Right. Write it down and pass it around.
Come on in, come on in.
We don't bite.
If you're from VNA, we've been waiting
Yes.
for you, so.
Oh, okay, we weren't sure we're walking into it.
We don't bite.
It's public.
It's recorded, so we can't bite.
Oh,
I just thought of that and maybe have 2.
yeah, that's an excellent idea.
That would be a perfect idea. I do believe.
By golly, I think you stopped it. That's good.
Did you say 2? Who would
We
be
get
the other?
secrets. We have to dedicate the town report to
Wasn't
somebody.
I said he was already, wasn't he?
It always has to be a surprise.
Well, no, he never got that before. He never got it. It's good for him.
So how we do this with microphones, with 1 microphone and 3 people?
Well, do all 3 of you plan to speak or just one person?
I think it's primarily just gonna be me, and they're here as backup.
Right, so
Well-
if you just want to come up.
Yeah, you want to have a seat at the microphone there? Just make sure you speak into the microphone so it's recorded, because the minutes are transcribed and we want to make sure that they're
Okay.
easy for her to transcribe. That's the right word, right? Transcribe?
Correct.
All right. Well, welcome
Thank you.
to the Tilton Board of Selectmen. And we asked you here to give us a presentation on your budget request.
Yes. So my name is Sherry Murray. I'm the Executive Assistant and HR Coordinator at Franklin VNA and Hospice. With me is Kristen Albert, our CEO, and Jenny Boyce, who is our Revenue Integrity Manager. My apologies. So Franklin VNA and Hospice, we're a small nonprofit hospice and home care service. We provide services to residents of Merrimack and Belknap County. We provide home care, hospice, and private duty services. Everything from nursing, physical therapy, to occupational therapy, home health aides, homemakers, spiritual care, all that in between. In 2020, we provided 1,329 visits to the residents of Tilton.
What was that, 1,329?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes. I'm sorry. We also provide community health clinics. In 2020, we provided 5 blood pressure clinics and 1 flu clinic. In 2021, once your senior center opened, we have been providing blood pressure clinics monthly. We also provided a flu clinic this year. We provide other education as requested. We gladly go to the towns that we service and provide education, whether it be on DNR forms, to what exactly hospice is, to diabetic foot care, things of that nature. I'm sorry, I don't know what
Do you still do the foot clinics at the senior center?
we do.
We do. I don't think there's been people who have signed up, but they were offered. They are offered.
Yeah, so they go each month, and sometimes there's nobody there looking for the service.
For the foot clinics, yeah.
Correct. They may have signed up and then something came up and they weren't there, but we do offer that service.
Excuse me, I do believe that during COVID, once we opened up the office again, when the senior centers weren't open, some of those people were coming to the office, so they just continued. So.
And yes, on Wednesdays, we provide foot care to a variety of patients every Wednesday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. They just call and schedule those appointments with us.
At your office?
At our office, if they can't make it into one of the clinics that are local.
I'm going to ask a question because I don't
Yeah.
know the answer. What is a foot clinic?
A foot clinic is, so we have a community health nurse, a registered nurse that individuals from the community, if they're interested, become a patient of ours just for foot care. We contact their physician and get orders to provide foot care to make sure that they're not on any blood thinners or something else that is dangerous where they should really be seen by a podiatrist. And our nurse does an assessment, clips their nails, and then reports any findings to their physician as needed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It saves individuals from having, it's kind of hard to get into the doctors, especially with COVID. Our community health clinics, they make an appointment, so it's a timed visit. They wait outside in their car. Our nurse goes out and gets them. They're the only patient at all in that whole wing of the building at the time.
Have you noticed any increases in your need for healthcare due to like hospitals? I hear hospitals not taking patients for
Yes.
surgeries that people really need done,
Yes.
but now they're staying home.
So even just for the past, let's say the past 4 weeks, our hospitals in the area have been inundated. We have received a huge increase in referrals coming to us. And a lot of the patients that are coming to us sometimes really are not safe to even be at home. They were unsafe discharges home, and we're there to keep them safe and report back to physicians. Some of the patients are only home for a week or 2 before they cycle back to the hospital and come back out with us.
Did you ever discover people that are at home, like you do regular visits for certain people, or discover people that actually should not, they're in real bad shape and they have to be?
Yeah, so all of our clinicians, whether it be a nurse or a therapist, work under a doctor's order. We work under, and after each visit, they do have to report back to the physician of their findings of the visits, whether it be via phone call or via documentation that goes to the provider. So if there's any unsafe situations, they report it to the doctors. And if it actually goes towards neglect or something more serious, they do have to file a BEAS.
So 1,329 Tilton visits. And you're asking us to contribute 12,000. Am I right? $12,572. How do you come about with that figure? And I know that it's been over an average of a few years, but we have to answer to our taxpayers as well. And there's been a lot of talk with different, with the budget committee and other areas of townspeople that said, well, you look at other towns and proportionately Tilton is overpaying for the services with Franklin V&A. Can you justify that?
So the dollar amount it's actually been the same for years. We didn't change it at all. The dollar amount it was originally a mathematical equation. What they did is they took the population of each of the towns that we service, they multiplied it by a specific dollar amount. I'd like to say, I don't want to fib to you, I get the dollar amount to you, it's like $1.52 or something like that. Because at any point, anybody from the community could become a patient of Franklin V&A. Anybody could go to any of those clinics. And we don't turn it, ideally, unless it's an unsafe admission, we don't turn anybody away. So even if a patient comes on service with us and they have insurance, and then we bill the insurance company, and it turns out that the insurance information was inaccurate, we don't chase the patient we write off that cost as charitable care. So that essentially, originally years ago, that's where the $12,572 came from.
It's been the same for quite a while.
It's been the same. I've been with the Franklin V&A for over 2 years. This is my third request, and I didn't change it from the previous number that was there before I came.
So here's the big question. Right?
Yep, go ahead.
I didn't raise my hand, I'm sorry. If they were to cut your budget, would you still be able to exist?
Yes, if any town was unable to meet our request, we wouldn't stop services to anybody. We would still be able to be in business. We run, to be perfectly honest, our financials are public. We run typically, because we are a nonprofit, near a deficit. We always try to break even. So if you guys countered it and said that we don't have it in our budget, we can only offer 10,000 or 5,000, whatever it was, we would make do with what we were given. We try to fundraise in between. We do seek any kind of grants we can possibly get.
Well, this lady jumped out.
I know, Kristen's looking home. Kristen's like, don't tell them that I'll take less.
No, I just wanted to add,
Just make sure you can move the microphone,
Yeah.
just because I don't know how the audio is going to be.
We don't want to have Gail get.
I just wanted to mention that, every year as a home care agency, insurances, Medicare are cutting what they reimburse us. And so a lot of places play the game of, okay, to make money, we only can do so many visits. Franklin V&A, we don't do that. We're all about the patient. We're all about giving excellent care to our patients, whether they have $1 million or no money, whether we're going to get reimbursed, the full amount, or we're going to be in the red with this patient. So if there's a patient in Tilton that needs wound care 3 times a week, and there's no one to help, there's no caregiver, we're going to go in 3 times a week. We're not going to make money on this patient. We're going to lose money, a lot of money, and we're probably not going to have that patient discharged from service for quite some time. And so these grants help us to stay afloat. Our goal is to not merge. Our goal is to stay independent. So we're not looking to grow. We're not looking to be a huge agency, because we really want to focus on the patient care. And that's why people keep coming back to us. So that's all.
Can you just state your name so that she can put that in the record?
Kristen Albert, I'm the
All right.
CEO at Franklin V&A.
All right, thank you.
So, anybody else have anything for that follow-up?
Thinking, but
Go ahead.
no, I'm still processing. Anyone else?
No.
John? No. So you say that if services were cut, nothing would change. I mean, sorry, if the budget request was reduced,
Correct.
then there would be no change in services.
For your patients, we would continue to see patients. It wouldn't be dependent on how much money you give us.
Right.
We're still going to see patients in Tilton. They're still going to get the care that they get now. The money just helps us stay being able to do what we can do and be independent. And it makes up for those patients that we lose money for in your town.
So if that amount was cut, I'm gonna go extreme to $100.
Yeah.
You're gonna come back to us next year and say, hey, we serviced 1,500 visits to Tilton. But in that 1,500, if you serviced, Scott was in your care, okay, and you saw him 3 times a week for 50 weeks, is that 150 visits out of that 1,500? Is that 10% of your?
No, it's number of patients.
It's number of patients.
Number of
So there's
patients.
1,329
Is that
patients.
correct?
Nope, that's visits.
That's visits, I'm sorry.
I can tell you the
Okay,
actual
so,
number of patients.
She does the numbers.
no, it's fine. So in my head, so let's just say next year you come to us and you say, hey, we came to Tilton, we did 1,500 visits in the town of Tilton.
Mhm.
You saw this guy here 3 times a week for 50 weeks,
Mhm.
because it's simple math for me. That's 10% of your visits are just to this one resident of the town of Tilton.
Mhm.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand the
Why
process.
would that make a difference?
Well, because I just want to make sure it's not, I'm thinking, okay, wow, there's 1,300 people in the town of Tilton that needed your services. Okay, but no, that it really could be 20 people and you saw them 1,300 times.
Right.
It's just for my own.
It's
Yes.
not 20 people that.
No, it's
Right.
probably hundreds of people, but they
Yeah.
can't
I
tell us
understand
that.
what you're saying, yes.
Yeah.
No. Pat?
I can tell, so the first number I do come across is just for, we're the only home care agency that services your town or in even the Lakes region that offers homemaker services. Our Homemaker Program is a non-skilled service. Insurance companies do not cover it. And that's where we send out a homemaker to the patient's home, and that homemaker does their cooking, their cleaning, runs to the grocery store for them, picks up their prescriptions. These are homebound patients. Typically, they're at poverty level for the most part. And just in the year 2020, we had 12 homemaker patients alone just in Tilton that were homebound and needed homemaker services. And 165 visits were provided to 12 patients.
And
No.
and that,
Just state your name too, just for the.
hi, Jenny Boyce. In that program for private duty where we service 12 patients, that might not sound like a lot, but our census in that program runs about 60. Just to give some
60,
perspective. for that.
62 today, to let you know.
Pat?
So I'll ask this question. We, the Board of Selectmen, make a decision on whether or not to approve or not approve, recommend or not recommend a $12,572 request for Franklin P&A. And you're sitting here in front of me. I'm a proponent of Franklin
Yep.
P&A, huge proponent. But you're not convincing me that you absolutely need this and it's a win-win for the town of Tilton with what you're saying to me tonight.
So what we're saying is we obviously need the money, because like I said, we barely break even at the end of the year. What we're saying is that if you could, every town pays at a different, or offers different town appropriations based on what they can in their budget, and we make sure that it works. We don't cut services to the patient. We make sure that if there is especially a good example would be hospice. We have an increased number of hospice patients over the past 6 months of patients coming home to die from the hospital. They wanted to be home. We've had an increase. Typically, the average hospice patient is on service with us for 2 weeks or more, because you can't even break even until you hit 2 weeks. The good chunk of patients that have been discharged in home the past 6 months aren't even home a week. So we don't say that we're not going to allow that patient to come home and come on service with us so that they can die at home with their family, because we don't know how we're going to break even at the end of the year. We worry about that as we're going each month with our finance committee of trying to figure out exactly where we're going to be in 6 months, but we don't ever turn any patients away. We would never not provide the services. We're not going to not provide the community health clinics. We're just going to keep trying to figure out, we might cut something in the office. We've merged We haven't let anybody go during COVID. We were the one agency around that we didn't furlough anybody, didn't cut any hours, but there was employees that left and retired because they were scared of COVID. They didn't want to be out in the homes anymore. And so we did have 4 clinical positions that people retired from that at the time we tried to fill, but because we were unable to fill those positions, we still provide the services needed. But we had a little bit of buffer. Other people were picking up extra hours, picking up extra patients in order for everybody to be seen. But there was a little bit of room in the budget in order to make sure that every patient could be seen. If that kind of makes sense.
Mhm.
As you read in the newspaper, like the county nursing home
Yeah.
is losing staff left and right over pay. Are you experiencing similar?
We'll be honest, we had to raise our LNAs, who are the individuals out in the community seeing patients that are doing more of the, we don't want to refer to them as the dirty work, but they're the ones actually doing the bathing, toilet in the patients, that type of thing. We did have to raise the pay for those types of positions up to $17 an hour when previously it was $15. We have had to offer sign-on bonuses to lure more nurses to the area. We're retaining staff and we are pretty much fully staffed only because of the fact that we are a small agency and we treat everybody like their family, whether they're patients or employees. And that's why most of the employees stay with us, because it's a close-knit group.
Thank you.
You're
Not for
welcome.
me, that was it. Anyone else? Scott? Oh, John? Pat? Joe?
All set.
All right.
Appreciate it. Coming in.
Yeah, appreciate you. Thank you very much
You're
for
welcome.
coming in and talking to us. No,
that's
it's
fine. We get it.
It's a favorite time of year, I'm sure.
And we answer to our board of directors who asked us the same types of questions, so don't even.
It's a thankless job.
I'm glad that you're there, and I'm very happy for what you do for our seniors, senior centers.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And if anything is requested of us, you guys have my email, and just feel free to shoot an email and I'll provide any information you need.
All right.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Thank you very
so
much.
Appreciate it.
Hope you guys have a good night.
Yeah,
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
All right. Watch for snow tomorrow.
Yes.
Stop it.
What's that? Well, yeah, not for you, not for me. Okay. I'll see what I can do. See what I can do.
Shh. Say anything and it'll happen.
Remote days count, right? Not for you. All right. All right. Do we want to discuss this? We have 15 minutes, or we can move right on to
MP.
Non-public?
non-public.
You want to discuss it?
I
mean, It's the one item that you're missing out of the budget.
John,
So I've had the opportunity to go inside their building and see how they operate. I can tell you there's not a single chair that matches. There's not a desk that matches. There's rooms that are crowded. There are employees that actually will do any painting or vacuuming or cleaning. In shoveling snow. It's absolutely the most bare bones run organization I have ever seen in my life, and going through their structure in their building and these folks. And I know in their heart of hearts that they would show up at your door even if they didn't get paid at all. It's very difficult for me because they're easy prey for a cut. They say, we're still gonna provide for you. No, cut us no matter what, we're gonna do it, we're gonna provide for you. But I want to be cautious of not cutting too much if we do decide to cut, because I just feel we're taking advantage of their situation and what they provide for the town. I want to make sure that they're paid fairly and contributed fairly from our community for all the things that they do. That's it.
I think that I agree with John because there's never been an opportunity that we've needed to call, or they've called us, whether it be our medical loan program or whatever. We've partnered with them in many, many different ways over the senior center and help and in any way we could to cut corners, to try to cut corners money-wise, to save money, I should say, not to cut corners. And they've done what they could. And they don't get a whole lot of federal monies and grants like another agency does. But when we look at the perspective of our outside agencies and what we do, there's not a whole lot that we try to give to the seniors and get them help. And it's not just the seniors that I'm talking about, but disabled. And I think this is the one organization that gives back to that in perspective. I think that we ought to grant that.
Did you have something?
Yeah, I would never vote to defund VNA, ever. Ever.
Make a motion that we,
Scott,
okay,
So I don't think we're looking at defunding it, but I can tell you once again, from the budget committee's analysis of it, that we were way, way above what the other communities were contributing. And they were receiving the same percentage-wise, if not in some cases a little bit more in terms of the services. So, you know, when we looked at the numbers, we knew, and we knew exactly what kind of services that they did. We were told the same thing, that they were not going to cut services from anyone. But in terms of trying to be fiscally prudent, we went down and took a look at, again, what that average contribution was. We were well above other communities who were receiving more. Okay, and that's in terms of visits and things like that as well. So that's why we went the route that we did with the number that we did. I'm well aware of the services that are provided, but we were way, way above everyone else.
so if we look at the outside agencies, the budget committee cut two, VNA and CAP. Those are the two outside agencies that the budget committee kept, that, you know, they didn't, if you look at that from our perspective and from people that work in that type of area, you know, youth assistance, Pines Community Center, you know, animal control. I mean, summer concerts. None of that in perspective of what we get dollar for dollar and what they give to our town in respect. I mean, this is not just a basketball game. This is life that they're giving to our residents. This is life. This is life.
Joe?
I appreciate the move to be fiscally responsible for the taxpayers. I'm one of those taxpayers, and I like it. And people are watching out for me when my back is turned. That said, I have made mention in the past, and hopefully live to make mention again. I don't care what other towns are doing. We've been on a race to the bottom with the surrounding towns. People like the Community Action Program and VNA, who deal with the most vulnerable among us, seem to be the ones that bear a disproportionate part of this. They really do service the ones who need it the very most. And in that spirit, I would make a motion to fund Franklin VNA for the full amount of their request.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Any more discussion, I should say? I don't know. I had one thing to say, and I don't know if, I'll throw it out there. What if, and I don't know, but this is just my work in progress here. If we, and Tim may hate me, reduce our, I'll make a suggestion to see where it goes. Reduce and level fund the Pines Community Center to 67,250 so that it's not as big an impact on the taxes. And whatever, it's $2,500 is what the increase is. And put that towards Franklin VNA. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there as a jumbled idea. And it's not going anywhere. So.
Well, you can't really have two motions on the floor, so.
Well, no, just the one right now. His was an idea
Just
that we should
discuss.
switch money around.
That's my.
Actually, they are two separate issues, however.
No, I know that, but ultimately we were discussing the budget.
It's the budget committee's budget that goes to town meeting.
This is our recommendation.
This is our
I
recommendation.
get it.
We just fight for it at town hall, at town meeting.
I call the question.
Question's been called. All those in favor of fully funding Franklin VNA, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion passes. So, Tim, you'll make the appropriate adjustment?
That was 12,572.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. All right. Moving on, we're ready to go into non-public? Okay, make a motion to enter non-public session per RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2A, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him or her, unless the employee affected, 1, has a right to a public meeting, and 2, requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted, and RSA 91-A:3, 2E, consideration or negotiation of pending claims or litigation which has been threatened in writing or filed by or against this board or any subdivision thereof, or by or against any member thereof because of his or her membership therein until the claim or litigation has been fully educated or otherwise settled. Do I have a second?
Constantino, second.
Roll call vote.
Constantino, yes.
Jessamine, yeah.
Pyra, yes.
Ruggles, yes.
Scanlon, yes.
We are in non-public session at 7:24. And then we're going to have a short discussion.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, the time being 9:42 PM. I'd like to make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public minutes of January 6, 2022, because the reasons justifying the need for the non-public session still remain.
Jessamine, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Jeannie,
Quickly, the CDC just changed their guidelines relative to masking. In New Hampshire, it's been 10 days quarantine. From your first symptom, 24 hours, no fever, you can come back. CDC changed it to 5 days quarantine and then 5 days with a mask. My question to this board, do you want to, and New Hampshire just today at noon went with the CDC guidelines with a few minor exceptions about wearing the mask for a longer period of time. So my question to the board is, do you want to hold with the prior 10-day quarantine, what New Hampshire had, or do you want to follow what New Hampshire is doing as effective as today, which is effectively the CDC guidelines with a little more stringent relative to the mask wearing?
Yeah, New Hampshire.
New Hampshire guidelines.
New Hampshire guidelines now today.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Is that a consensus? Yes?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay,
Yes.
It's amazing.
all right. Oh,
Just have a quick question for the board, which I brought up
usually
earlier,
Joe has that question.
which was regarding, I take it then the board does not wish to make any changes to the police budget tonight. Is that correct?
Oh, that's correct. We don't have to do that tonight.
Not
But
tonight.
it's won't be for 2 more weeks.
There you go.
It'll still be
So
before
what?
the public hearing.
We still have time before the public hearing.
We can amend it
Well,
on
look
the
at some of
floor of
those.
the town meeting.
All right,
We don't have to do it tonight.
can you come up with a suggestion?
Yes.
In 2 weeks, thanks. Joe has something.
Joe, what do you have to say today? You've been awfully quiet today.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none. We are adjourned at
It's not as hard to make it
9:44.
happen.
Yeah, I don't.
Still over.